Use your sandworm to pick up and deliver goods efficiently. But be careful, carrying too many goods will slow you down in sand.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Sand, game designed by Ariel Di Costanzo and Javier Pellizzari and published by Devia Games.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant here from Meeple University.
Alright, let's get to the classroom.
Set in the Botoku universe, in Sand, players are travellers, travelling on their worms around the cities and camps in a Euro-style pick-up and deliver battle. With their speeds and actions limited by a common set of dice available to all players, players will move to gather the basic plants, cash them in for money, upgrades or better resources, and spread songs about their adventures throughout the land. Whoever earns the most money over 5 or 6 rounds of play, depending on your player count, will be the winner. I won't take you step by step through setup, but I'll show you what the board looks like at the end of setup and introduce you to the components. Sand is a pick up and deliver game, and you'll have supplies of all of the various resources which can be delivered. The most basic are the plants, and these are all mixed up in the bag. These come in 4 colours, red, blue, black and white. And you'll see these colours a lot because they also represent your actions and the dice. You'll seed all of the printed cities on the board with randomly drawn plants, with 1 on these upper ones that show a diamond and 2 on all the others. And roll the 4 dice and place them in any order into the dice tray. These need to be visible and available for all players to use. Between the board and the bag there should be 20 of each type of plants. Then you'll have supplies of all of the other resources, with 5 in each colour. From least valuable to most valuable, these are in bright secondary colours, the crafts, in pastel primary colours, the relics, and then in grey, the Iwakura rocks. At the top of the board you'll find the port where each player's worm begins. Above that is the turn order tracker and the round phase tracker, as well as the mission cards. You'll have a layered deck with these 4-dot cards on the bottom, then the 3-dot, then the 2-dot, the 1-dots and the blanks. For these you will have dealt out a number of cards equal to 1 more than the number of players, returning the rest of the box, and arranged them in number order from highest to lowest. In the 4-player game you won't use the 4-dot cards, you'll simply start with the 3. Either way, these cards will track the number of rounds in the game, which is 5 in a 4-player game, or 6 at 3 or 2. In the middle of the board you will have randomly placed the 6 camp tiles, with the blue tiles which produce the lower value crafts nearer the port at the top of the board, and the green camps which produce the higher value relics further away from the port. Each tile has 2 minor tribe tokens on it, a 1 and a 2 in that order. Near the base of the board are the plant seals which may figure in final scoring. Each player takes a player board and the matching shelter and songs in their colour. Around the board there's a series of upgradable tiles. This will be 1 matching set of companion tiles, these are the same for all players, and likewise a worm which begins on its blank unupgraded side. In the top left slot, players may choose a starting character who has a special power they can use throughout the game, or if you don't wish to use these, flip one over to an illustration of your colour. You begin with 5 money and your aim is to gain as much money as possible to win the game. Along the left of your board there are 5 tracks you'll need to manage. You take 1 cube in each of the 5 colours. These aren't taken from the resource supplies, there are 4 extras in the game for each colour. And you'll set your hydration, your food and your health to maximum, your prayer to minimum, and your prestige according to your position in turn order. Finally, this section of the board represents your actions and your resource carrying capacity. We'll explain how this works shortly, but to start the game you'll have 1 action token in each colour, flipped over to the dice side, and you'll have 1 of these blocking tokens covering 1 of these 4 lower row slots. You're now ready to play. Sand is played in either 5 or 6 rounds, and each round is played in 3 phases, morning, afternoon and night. For the most part, these phases are identical unless you have some specific effect that refers to one. Otherwise, these phases just mean that each player will get 3 turns in the round. That is, in the morning phase, each player takes 1 turn in turn order. The same will happen in the afternoon, and the same will happen in the night. On your turn, you may take multiple actions in any order. Several factors impact which actions are available to you, at what strength you can take them, and how many you can take. And this includes your action tokens, the availability of your storage slots, and the common dice, which are used by all players and rolled only at the start of each round. At its most basic, it costs you 1 action token in one of these storage slots to take an action which corresponds to that colour and/or the number on the die. So with this in mind, to take a turn, the first thing you do is choose action tokens from the top row to move down to empty slots on the bottom row. Here, for example, at the start of the game, I had only 3 slots available, so I'd be limited to taking 3 of these actions. Once the actions are declared, I can then take the actions in any order, moving, for example, the white one back up to the top to take a white action of strength 6, then a red action of strength 4, and then a black action of strength 3. Be aware that not all actions rely on both colour and strength. Some actions, for example, simply need a white die of any number. Some might need a strength 6 action of any colour, and in some cases neither matters. You simply have to spend an action. The strength that corresponds to each colour is based on the die roll, and because this is done once per round, you'll have these same strengths for all 3 turns in a given round. If you need a die of a higher strength, there are 2 ways to achieve this, shown here. You could spend points from your prayer track to increase the number of pips, or you could spend coins. So here, for example, I'd spent 3 prayer and 1 coin. If I were then taking a red action with that, it would count as a red 8. There's no limit to how high a die can go, but it counts only for this action and you don't modify the die itself. The slots you use to declare your action are also the slots you use to carry resources on your worm. As such, as you start carrying resources between turns, your capacity to take actions on subsequent turns is reduced. Furthermore, any time you have a plant in your worm's inventory, the matching coloured action token is flipped over to its resource side. In this way, carrying a plant not only blocks out an action slot, but it prevents you from declaring the action of the matching colour, because you can only declare actions which show the die icon face up. Once you no longer have that plant in your inventory, the token's flipped back over to its die side, becoming available again. But be clear that you must declare all of your actions at the start of your turn. If through your actions you free up these slots or flip tokens back over to their dice sides, you still won't be able to make use of these slots or tokens until your next turn. So, in summary, begin your turn by declaring which die side up action tokens you'll place into empty inventory slots, and then, one at a time in any order, return those tokens to the top to take an action in that colour and at the strength of that die, which can be modified with prayer or coins. Continue doing this until all of your action tokens are back on the top row, and then play passes to the next player in turn order. So with that understood, let's have a look at the main actions you can take. The first and most common action you'll be taking is move, and this allows you to move your worm along a single path to an adjacent location. There are 3 types of path: green, grey, and the shortcuts in red. Green and grey paths are cheaper and safer but require more actions, while shortcuts get you where you need to go faster but at a higher cost. You may move with a die of any colour, but the number of pips must at least meet the threshold value for the type of path you're walking on your worm tile. In this case, assuming I used no modifiers, I would have to use a white die to move on a shortcut. I could use red or white to move on one of the other paths. These thresholds reduce as you upgrade your worm, but a single action still allows you to move only a single path, even if you meet the pip threshold multiple times. You must then also pay the costs on these 3 tracks, again, based on the path you've chosen and the level of upgrade of your worm. If you can't afford the full cost, then you can't make the move. Finally, move your worm. Multiple players may occupy the same space. To restore these tracks as they dwindle, you'll need to take the Care for Your Worm actions. For these, you'll spend an action of the colour matching the resource to regain an amount of points based on the strength of the die. In this case, I'd spend the blue action to regain 6 hydration points. Here, I'd spend the red action to regain 5 food. Each of these tracks is limited by the size of the track, so any excess would be lost. Life points are more costly to restore. It's the only action in the game requiring you to spend 2 action points, a white one and a black one. When you do this, you restore life points based on the higher of the 2 dice. So in this case, if I did these and spent a coin to increase the black die, I could regain 7 health. The 2 other tracks, Prayer and Prestige, are increased in a similar manner. For Prayer, you would spend a white action to gain as many points as the white die, and for Prestige, you'd spend a black action to gain as many Prestige points as the black die. Just note that these 2 actions have one difference, in that you're not allowed to spend prayer points or coins to increase the values on the dice. You can remember this by the absence of this icon from those 2 tracks. If your worm is in a city that's any location with a name, then you may take the Compose Song action. This simply costs an action. It can be any colour and any strength. Take 1 song token from your player board and add it to the song slot of your city. If there was already a song present, you displace it, returning it to its owner. Having your song tokens on the board provides a couple of different ways of scoring, which we'll see a little bit later. If your worm is in a city which has at least 1 plant token present, then you may spend an action to pick up that plant. This costs an action matching the colour of the plant you're picking up, but can be any number. Place the plant cube into the slot you just freed up and flip the action token over to its unavailable side. All of these actions lead us towards what is your primary objective in the game, which is the delivery of goods. Delivery of goods is a free action. You simply need to check which resources are on your worm and have your worm in a location which accepts that colour of goods. As long as this is the case, you may make the delivery without spending any action token. A lot of things are going to be triggered when you make delivery, and most obvious among them is that you're going to gain some money for what you've just sold. Each type of goods has 2 different prices, a high price represented by the green plus and a low price represented by the red minus. The locations tell you which price they sell for. This camp, for example, takes white and red at the high price or black and blue at the low price. So if I delivered red and blue, I'd get 3 plus 1, a total of $4. In addition to the printed price of your goods, there are 2 other money benefits you get every time you make a delivery. First, gain money equal to your current position on your prestige track before dropping your prestige track to 0. Secondly, when you deliver, gain 1 coin for every song you have anywhere on the map. The song bonus comes once per delivery visit to a city, not for each cube delivered. There are 3 types of location, and the goods they'll accept differ. Cities already produce plants, so you cannot deliver plants to cities. You can deliver crafts or relics to any city for the lower price, which you can remember by this generic city banner icon at the bottom of the board. Each of the 6 camps will pay top price for 2 types of plants and lower price for 2 other types of plants. They will not accept any other types of deliveries. These camps are most efficient if you deliver both of the requirements, either the high cost requirements or the low cost requirements at once. If you deliver both high cost requirements, Then, in addition to the money, you gain the craft or relic cube shown in the top left, immediately adding that to an inventory slot without paying an action. If you deliver both lower cost requirements at once, then in addition to the money, take the top minor tribe token from that camp. This collection could be worth points at the end of the game. The last location is the port, and you can deliver anything here. You'll get the low value for the plants and the high value for everything else. This is the only place that accepts deliveries of rocks. Last of all, anything you deliver to any location, you don't return it to the supply. You add them into these tracks down the bottom of your board. Again, this is on top of all the money and other benefits we just described. You then immediately gain any benefit covered. In this case, it's another $3. If you run out of space on a given track, any spillover goes to the bottom for a flat $5 benefit. All of your engine building benefits come from these tracks. One benefit, which is specific to collecting your plants, is that you can get a specialization seal. The first player to deliver 4 of a matching type of plant collects its seal from the bottom of the board. Each seal you collect grants you some extra points in the endgame. But more important are your player board upgrades. As you've been listening to these rules, you may be thinking that everything sounds very expensive and hard to do in this game, and that's true until you get these upgrades. The worm upgrade lets you upgrade your worm, and you can do this a maximum of twice for the game. For your first worm upgrade, flip this token over, remove the marker that's blocking your 4th action space, and immediately gain 5 on each of these 3 tracks. For your second upgrade, remove the tile, and again gain 5 on each track. This upgrade lets you flip over one of your 4 companions, making its special power active. The Custodian makes it cheaper to restore your worm's health. Now, instead of having to pay both your black and white action markers, you need to pay only one of them to gain health points based on that die. The Navigator lets you move your worm twice for a single action. When doing this, it costs a single action marker, but you add up all the requirements of the 2 routes you move. For example, if I moved a green and a grey, I would have to pay a total of 2 hydration, a total of 1 food, and a total of 1 health, and have a total of at least 4 pips. You are allowed to stop and perform other actions and deliveries between the 2 legs of this movement. The Young Worm upgrade lets you carry 2 matching resources in the same inventory slot. For non-plants, this simply means placing the new cube on top of the old one. In the case of plants, it means that where you would normally need to spend the matching coloured action to pick up that cube, you may now pick up a second copy of a resource you already have simply by being in a city with it, then stacking as before. The final companion is the Shaman, and the Shaman goes hand in hand with the Shelter upgrade and is the only way to get access to the most valuable Iwakura Rocks resource. And so I'll cover all of these in this section. Whether you have your Shaman or not, when you place your 3rd plant, you make your Shelter upgrade. Take your Shelter piece and place it into any location, camp, oasis or city, which doesn't already have a shelter. If you visit the location with your own shelter, you may freely move resources between your inventory slots and the 4 slots in your shelter. In this way, your shelter can be a central hub to make sure you have access to the right combinations of resources at the right time. Just remember to keep your action tokens updated so that they match the current inventory on your worm. You can't deliver resources directly from your shelter, only from your worm. Once your Shaman's unlocked, you have a couple of special actions available to you. The first is to have the Shaman's acolytes collect plants for you. Find a city anywhere on the board where there is a plant which matches one of the acolytes in that city. The acolytes are these robed figures shown at the front. Here, this white plant or this blue one would be options. spend an action with colour matching the plant you're targeting, and pay 1 coin. Then take the plant regardless of where your worm is, and add it to your shelter. In this way, the Shaman helps you to transport plants across the map without having to do all of the travelling yourself. The Shaman's other benefit is the ability to turn relics, remember those are the pale blue, yellow and pink cubes, into rocks. To do this, you must first obtain relics from camps as usual and move them into your shelter. Once per turn, the Shaman may convert a single relic into an Iwakura rock. This doesn't count as delivering a relic. You return it to the supply, not to the delivery track. To monetize the rocks, you'll then need to load them from the shelter onto your worm and deliver them to your port. The last option for your turn is to abandon goods, and this simply means to drop goods out of one of your worm's inventory slots without delivering it. If you abandon a plant, move it into one of the 4 abandoned goods slots and make your action token available again. If it's anything other than a plant, simply return it to the supply. You can abandon goods at the very start of your turn, making these tokens available for the turn you do it in. On any turn subsequent to the one on which you abandoned the plant, you can spend the plant from your abandoned goods section, returning it to the bag, in order to take the matching coloured action, whether that token is available or not. This behaves exactly like spending that token. You'll use the current value of the die and can take actions in that matching colour. This can be a way of taking extra actions or the same action colour more than once on the same turn. Once all players have finished their night phase turns, you'll proceed to the upkeep phase. Firstly, in reverse turn order, players choose mission cards from all those available in this round. Then players choose whether they're going to do the top half or bottom half of that card. If you take the top half, simply discard the card and gain the immediate resource shown. If you choose the bottom half, take the card and add it to your collection. If you can meet the objectives shown on that card, you'll gain the printed points at the end of the game. Just be aware that you are not allowed to collect these mission cards for their endgame points if you have delivered any rocks. As soon as you have delivered your first rock, you must discard any of these cards that you'd previously collected without gaining their immediate rewards. And from this point onward, you must always take the top half rewards when you choose a card. Reset the turn order by returning these markers to the track from right to left. As in setup, players gain the prestige benefit for their position, if any. Refill all empty plant spaces in cities with random plants from the bag, including the diamond spaces which were left blank during initial setup. Discard all leftover face-up mission cards, and then, as in setup, deal out a number of cards from the next part of the deck, equal to 1 more than the number of players, and arranged from highest number to lowest. Then remove all the remaining cards that have the same back so that you've reached the next set. Re-roll the dice to set their new values for the next round, and proceed to the next morning phase. The game ends after 5 rounds in a 4-player game or 6 rounds in a 2 or 3-player game. There will be no mission cards on offer in the final round, and you'll skip the upkeep phase. Gain money for any endgame missions you met. This, for example, is $5 for every 3 white boxes you delivered, so in this case a total of 10. This would be $4 because the rightmost box in the crafts row is orange. This would be 7 coins for having made no red deliveries. And this would be 8 coins for having the most or equal most total relics delivered. Gain 1 coin for each delivered box matching one of your specialization seals, if any. In this case, I've got a total of 11 matches. Add up all the numbers on any minor tribe tokens you collected, and the player or players with the highest number gain a bonus $12. Finally, count up all of your song tokens on the board, and the player or players with the most songs gain $3 per song. The player with the most money wins, and if tied, Victory goes to the player with the most delivered plants, then the most delivered rocks, then the most completed missions, and if still tied, victory is shared. And that's how to play Sand.
Thanks so much for watching and sticking around. Your like and comments are much appreciated. Subscribe to see what's coming, and hopefully you have a wonderful day. See you next time.